I was 20 years old when I worked overnight shifts at a Walmart tucked into the quiet countryside of Jackson, Alabama. The store used to run 24 hours back then, so quiet never meant empty, just hollow, stretched out silence broken only by the buzzing lights overhead and the distant grinding of machinery. If you've ever been inside a supercenter past midnight, you know the atmosphere. Too bright, too still, too clean in all the wrong ways. On this particular night, I was assigned to seasonal and home goods, the part of the store so far from the entrances it felt like you were drifting into the woods outside. Nobody ever went back there. That's probably why management liked putting me there. I worked fast and didn't complain. It was around 1 a.m. when I first heard it. A sound that didn't belong. A cartwheel. Not just any wheel either, the sharp, dragging shriek of a rusted bearing. It echoed down the main thoroughfare like something was limping toward me. I paused with a half-opened box of shower curtain rings in my hand and leaned around the end of the aisle. That's when I saw him. A middle-aged man, maybe mid-40s, wearing mismatched clothes, khaki work pants, a bright orange fishing vest, and worn-out boots. He wasn't carrying anything. He wasn't looking for anything. And his cart was empty. He pushed it slowly, almost ceremonially, like he was pacing out a funeral march. His eyes were locked dead ahead, his expression blank. No phone. No bags. No groceries. He passed the mouth of my aisle. Then he stopped. Not turning. Not scanning shelves. Not noticing me. Just standing there. After a moment, he started moving again, turning the corner into back to school without a single glance my direction. I tried to shake it off. Walmart attracts weird people. But something about the way he moved didn't feel random. It felt purposeful. Repetitive. Like he had done it before. 40 minutes later, I heard the cart again. Same wheel. Same slow pace. Same man. He drifted by another aisle without ever acknowledging me. Like I wasn't even a person, just another thing in his environment. This time I found Mark, another stalker. "Hey," I whispered. "You see that guy? Orange vest, empty cart." Mark shrugged. "Yeah, that's the cart whisperer. Comes around every few weeks. Harmless. Just walks. Doesn't buy anything. Doesn't touch anything." "Why does he do that?" I asked. "No idea. Dude's weird but calm. Just let him loop." Mark's answer didn't help. If anything, it made the guy seem more unnatural. How do you wander the aisles of a Walmart for hours without touching a single product? Without ever changing pace? Without looking anywhere except straight ahead? Still, I went back to work. Repetition numbs fear, at least for a while. But around 3 a.m., something broke the pattern. I had to wheel a pallet into the back receiving area. That space is strictly employees only, usually locked during the day, but at night people forget to snap the chain. It's dark, cold, and full of stacked boxes and machinery, like a warehouse inside a warehouse. I rolled my pallet jack into the deeper section of the back room. Then I froze. There, wedged perfectly in a narrow corridor between two towering stacks of supplies, was a shopping cart. His cart. I stepped backward, pulse pounding. Next to it stood the man in the orange vest, facing away from me, staring motionlessly at a wall of industrial bleach bottles. He wasn't moving. He wasn't browsing. He was just there. Inside the employee-only area. Past a locked door he never should have been able to enter from the outside. This wasn't a loop anymore. This wasn't a harmless habit. He had crossed into my space. I didn't say a word. I turned my pallet slowly, scraping metal softly against the concrete, and got out of there. When I reached the sales floor again, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't want to hear Mark dismiss it as nothing. But the dread stuck with me, this crawling sense that he had a reason for going into the back, and that reason had nothing to do with shopping. I stayed toward the front of the store for the next hour, stocking things you could see clearly from multiple angles: makeup, lip balm, soap. Places with less shadow. At 4:15 a.m., he appeared again. This time he was pushing his cart backward down the main aisle. His head was tilted down, eyes fixed on the floor as if studying every inch. He stopped in front of the locked main doors, still facing me. Then, slowly, he tapped the front of the cart with the toe of his boot. A small sound, but it shot through the quiet like a gunshot. I dropped the box in my hands. That was enough to make him lift his head. And for the first time, he looked directly at me. His eyes weren't blank. They were analytical. Focused. A little too focused. The kind of stare you'd expect from someone solving a puzzle, one where you were the main variable. He looked at me. Then at the box I'd dropped. Then back at me again. He didn't say a word. He just turned his cart and continued slowly toward the back of the store, as if logging my reaction was part of his routine. I didn't bother looking for Mark this time. I went straight to Dave, my manager in the liquor department. I told him everything. The back room. The stare. The tapping. Dave sighed. He's a regular. Walks the aisles every now and then. Harmless. Security escorts him out around 6. No, Dave. He was in the employee-only area. And he's watching me. Dave finally paused, hearing the shake in my voice. He handed me the maintenance phone and told me to call him if I saw the man again. That was all the reassurance he could give. I hated returning to the floor. The silence felt heavier. Denser. Like the store itself was holding its breath. Around 5 a.m., my shift nearly over, I decided to clock out early and get out of that place. Then I saw the cart. Not him, only the cart. Positioned diagonally across the main aisle. Blocking the way. Silent. I dialed Dave with a trembling hand. "I don't see him," I whispered. "Push it aside," Dave said casually. "He does that sometimes." "No," I whispered. "He's close." "I know he is." I shoved the cart away, it screeching while screaming across the empty store. Then, a soft sound. A squeak. I turned my head. He was standing inside the hanging shower curtain rack. Hidden among the fabrics. Watching me. A gray notebook in his hands. And he wasn't surprised that I saw him. If anything. He looked satisfied. He didn't move. Not at first. He just stood there inside the curtain rack, half hidden between polyester patterns of blue and beige, as if he'd been standing there long before I pushed the cart. Long before I even dialed the phone. He watched me with the same unblinking, patient focus I'd only ever seen in predatory animals. No emotion. Just evaluation. The notebook in his hand was small, gray, the kind Walmart employees used for inventory notes. But it wasn't open randomly, he had been reading it. Studying it. Like he'd been logging something. Me. I whispered, barely audible, "Sir, the store closes soon. You need to head up front." He didn't speak. He didn't blink. His eyes flicked down to my hand, the one clutching the maintenance phone, then back to my face. Slowly, deliberately, he closed the notebook with a dull, heavy thud. That sound broke my paralysis. I bolted. Not toward the entrances, and not toward Dave. I sprinted sideways, weaving through a cross aisle like a hunted animal, trying to put as many shelves and corners between us as possible. The break room had a deadbolt. That was my target. My only escape. I didn't look back until I hit the swinging double doors that led to the employee areas. When I finally turned, he wasn't chasing me. He was pushing the cart again. Slowly. Methodically. heading down the main aisle toward the checkouts. Not toward me. Not away from me. Just, continuing his patrol. That somehow made it worse. If he had run at me, at least I could have explained the danger. But the calmness? The routine? Like he hadn't done anything unusual at all. That meant he wasn't reacting to me. He was following a plan. I slammed the employee door shut behind me and fumbled the keycard against the scanner. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped it twice before the lock clicked. I shoved open the break room door and threw the deadbolt with all my strength. Then I slid to the floor between the lockers and tried to breathe. For 20 straight minutes, I sat there in a full-body tremor, listening to the muted hum of the building wrap around me. Every now and then, I thought I heard the faint metallic echo of the cartwheel. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe it wasn't. When the other early morning stalkers started trickling in, their voices felt unreal, like distant noise underwater. Human sound returning to a place that had felt inhuman all night. I eventually stood up, wiped my face, and clocked out. I just wanted to get out of the building. But when I stepped toward the front counter, Mark was there with a Red Bull. He looked at me and froze. "Damn, you look like you've seen a demon," he said. "I saw the cart whisperer," I said, my voice still cracking. He blocked the aisle. He was hiding in the curtain rack. He had a notebook. He was waiting for me. Mark's grin faded. He had a notebook. That's new. His eyes drifted behind me. Wait. What is that? I turned. Sitting on the customer service counter, just inside the employee-only side, was a shopping cart. His cart. The metal was the same cheap, worn silver. But now it wasn't empty. A neat stack of index cards sat in the child seat area. I didn't want to look. Every part of me screamed not to touch them. But I reached anyway. The top card had sharp, clinical handwriting. 4:15 a.m., Subject 1, emotional state, panic, confirmed. Reaction, flight. Path, aisle 19 cosmetics. I felt myself go numb. I flipped the next card. 5:05 a.m., Subject 1, Test 2, obstruction, success. Observation, run time, 11 seconds. Location, curtain rack, optimal. Test. Observation. Subject. Each card was time-stamped. Each described a moment from the night. My movements. My reactions. My fear. He wasn't wandering. He wasn't harmless. He was studying me. The last card at the bottom chilled me worse than anything else. The perimeter is secure. Subject knows the rules now. I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. But it felt like a conclusion, like my reactions were part of something he'd been rehearsing. I handed the stack to Dave as I headed out. He went pale reading them, immediately called security, and demanded the tape footage. But the tapes didn't show what I saw. They showed the man walking the aisles, but not stepping into the back room. They showed him passing the shower curtain racks, but not hiding inside them. They showed him pushing his empty cart, but not tapping it. Not staring at me. Not holding the notebook. It was like the cameras saw a different version of him. A harmless one. The real version, the one I experienced, was erased. I quit 2 weeks later. I didn't feel safe in the building anymore. The aisles felt too long. The corners too sharp. The spaces between shelves too perfect for someone to disappear into. He never returned to that Walmart. At least not physically. But something about the night stayed with me. Now, whenever I enter any big store, Target, Walmart, Costco, I feel the same cold phantom pressure, the sense of being observed from a place just out of view. I scan for empty carts positioned at odd angles, for curtain racks or clothing displays someone could hide inside. I listen for that lone, dragging wheel. Because the cart whisperer didn't haunt the store. He haunted the layout. The dead aisles. The blind corners. The unnatural silence of late-night retail. He taught me that terror doesn't need teeth or weapons or screaming threats. Sometimes all it takes is a stranger mapping your fear in real time, using your own environment to trap you psychologically, turning a public place into his private hunting ground. Even now, on certain nights when I can't sleep, I'll hear a faint screech coming from nowhere in particular. A rusted wheel. A slow, patient sound. And I'll remember the last thing he wrote. The perimeter is secure. Maybe it was the store he meant. Or maybe it was me. The incident with the cart whisperer changed something in me. Not the kind of fear that makes you jump at noises, but the kind that settles into your bones, permanent, low-frequency paranoia. After it happened, I stayed on the overnight shift anyway. The money was decent, and the silence was still easier to stomach than the chaos of daytime shoppers. My new station was layaway and electronics. If you've ever worked in that section, you know how strangely claustrophobic it can feel. The counter was surrounded by plexiglass panels, making it feel like a fish tank for stressed-out employees. Behind me were locked metal cages filled with laptops, consoles, and expensive gadgets, things people were willing to steal or fight over. The phone console sat right on the counter. A beige block of outdated plastic with 4 lines. Line 1, store. Line 2, internal. Line 3, supervisors. And line 4, external 4, a line Susan, my coworker, claimed had been dead for years. She called it the ghost line. Just a leftover button no one had bothered to remove. The first night it rang, it was 1:58 a.m. I remember the sound clearly, not loud, not sharp. A soft, unnatural chirp, almost polite. I looked down and saw the red light blinking over line 4. "Susan, did you hear that?" I asked. She didn't even look up from her stack of Blu-rays. "Hear what?" "The dead line just rang." She shrugged. "Cross signals. This place is wired like a junkyard. Ignore it." The line rang 6 times exactly, then stopped. I told myself it was nothing. Probably interference, old wiring, or some weird internal glitch. But at 2:10 a.m. the next night, it rang again. Same pattern. Same number of rings. Same eerie timing. By the 3rd night, it felt intentional. Susan still brushed it off, but something about the calmness of it, the almost rhythmic consistency, felt like a presence knocking at a door no one was supposed to open. On the 4th night, it rang 8 times instead of 6. That was when I finally snapped and answered it. "Electronics, can I help you?" I muttered, expecting static. But there was nothing. No breathing. No ambient noise. Just a void-like silence, as if I'd called into a vacuum. I was about to hang up when I heard it, a whisper. Faint, female, leaking through the plastic casing rather than the speaker. $78.99. A price. Just a price. A totally mundane Walmart number delivered in the most unsettling whisper I'd ever heard. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I spent the rest of the shift trying to rationalize it. Maybe someone but dialed the store. Maybe a glitched automated system spit out a random number. But the whisperiness of it, the breath behind the words, made that explanation feel like a lie. The next night, the ghost line rang again at 1:40 a.m. This time, I picked up immediately. "Hello." Again, nothing at first. Then, after 7 long seconds, the whisper returned, still faint, but clearer. "You wore the blue one." I nearly dropped the receiver. 2 days earlier, my mom had visited the store and chatted with me at the counter. I'd been wearing a faded blue hoodie I hadn't worn in months. No customers had been near us. No cameras had audio. Those words weren't random. "Who is this?" I demanded. The caller didn't hesitate this time. The whisper came again, but louder, almost rushed. "She misses the blue one." The line cut out. Those words stabbed straight into my brain. "She misses the blue one" wasn't something a stranger could say without sounding creepy, but this sounded purposeful. Meaningful. I started to feel something familiar, the same suffocating sensation I felt around the cart whisperer, the sense I was being studied from a direction I couldn't see. Over the next nights, the calls escalated. They grew more specific. More personal. Always whispers. Always that dead line blinking like a pulse. One night. "The key is under the third stepping stone." Another. "You lost the silver cross." Then. "The dog hates the red leash." These weren't guesses. They were facts, pulled directly from small, private corners of my life. Things no one but my family or closest friends knew. Every shift became a countdown to when the blinking light would come alive again. Mark, the same guy from my first story, was working sporting goods near me. He noticed the routine, but like always, he tried to rationalize everything. He kept telling me someone was messing with me. A prankster with a scanner. A hacker. Something explainable. Then Thursday came. At 2:05 a.m., the deadline blinked. I answered immediately. This time, the whisper was too clear. Too close. "Did you remember to feed the turtle, honey?" I felt my heart dissolve into ice. That was my grandmother's voice. She used to say that exact line when I was a kid visiting her house. She'd check on her small, ancient pet turtle and always ask me helpfully, sweetly, "Did you remember to feed the turtle, honey?" She had been dead for 3 years. "Stop it," I yelled. "Who is this?" The whisper that came next wasn't her voice. It wasn't a stranger's voice. It was mine. My exact voice. "You shouldn't have told Sarah about Jackson." My knees almost buckled. The line went dead with a sharp click. At that exact moment, Mark walked by. He must have heard me shouting because he put his ear near the receiver when I held it out, trembling. The whisper returned instantly. Still in my voice. Louder. "And Mark, you really shouldn't have stolen the cigarettes from your mom's purse last week." Mark staggered back like he'd been punched. His face drained of all color. That was when everything changed. We both realized this wasn't a glitch, or a prank, or a bored tech guy. Someone wasn't just calling us. Someone was listening to us, collecting information, copying voices, replaying things we'd said privately, maybe weeks before, and deploying them at the exact psychological moment to break us. The cart whisperer had mapped my fear through physical space. But the deep caller? He was mapping my mind. Mark didn't return to electronics for almost 15 minutes. I found him crouched behind a display of fishing rods, dry heaving. He kept saying the same thing over and over. "It knew. It knew me. That was your voice. That was my secret. It knew." And as much as I wanted to tell him it was just some deranged prank, some tech guy messing with us, I couldn't. Because I didn't believe that anymore. Something about that whisper, my whisper, felt wrong in a way no human impersonation could ever replicate. I took the next night off. I drove 5 hours to Sarah's seminar and told her everything. The blue hoodie. The silver cross. The stepping stone key. She believed me only when she saw the look on my face, shaking, exhausted, hollow. We changed passwords. We checked her accounts. Nothing was breached. Nothing was stolen. Nothing made sense. When I returned to the store for my next shift, the beige phone console sat on the counter like a trap waiting to spring. Every time the overhead PA clicked, I flinched. Every time the intercom buzzed, I felt my stomach twist. At 1:45 a.m., line 4 blinked, not rang. Blinked. A slow, steady pulse. Like someone holding the line open. I didn't pick it up. Not this time. Instead, I grabbed a pen and paper. I told myself I would document everything exactly as it happened. No more reacting. No more letting this thing, whoever it was, control the narrative. The light blinked for nearly a full minute. Then it stopped. Silence washed over electronics, thick and suffocating. I tried to keep working. I tried to focus on stacking game controllers and checking serial numbers. But every time my eyes drifted back to the console, I felt like something behind it was waiting. 20 quiet minutes passed. Then line 1 rang, the normal store line. My breath caught. I answered on autopilot. Walmart Electronics. A man's voice responded. Calm. Gravelly. Yes. Hi. I'm calling to check if you have the Skyfire 4 console in stock. You've got it listed online for $278.99. The price hit me like a slap. $278.99. So close to the original whisper, $78.99. Too close. I checked inventory with trembling fingers. Yes, sir. We have 2. Good, the man said. Good. I'm on my way. He hung up before I could say another word. I stood there staring at the phone. My reflection looked warped in the plexiglass, like someone else was staring back. Something was happening. Something shifting. I called Dave. Told him everything. The price link. The whisper. The coincidence that felt more like a trap than a sale. Relax, Dave said. Guy wants a console. Happens every night. If he acts weird, call me. But line 4 was blinking again. This time, the blinking wasn't slow, it synced perfectly with the overhead lights, like it was tapping into the building's electrical pulse. I stepped closer. Pressed the button. For the first time, there wasn't silence. There was typing, rapid, frantic keystrokes, like someone was inputting a password or logging into a terminal. Then a pause. Then a soft beep. The sound was unmistakable, the beep of the keycard scanner at Walmart's main employee entrance. Then, in crystal clear audio, as if the speaker had moved inside my head, I heard my own voice speaking back at me. The cage is locked, and the perimeter is secure. I slammed the receiver down so hard the whole console shook. I ran. Didn't lock up. Didn't shut down. Didn't radio anyone. I sprinted straight to the break room. Mark and Dave were there. I told them everything. The console call. The price. The typing. The stolen audio from the keycard scanner. And my own voice. Dave finally believed me. 10 minutes later he called corporate security. Then the third-party surveillance company. Then the district asset protection manager. He said the words, possible breach, and, internal line manipulation. At 4:30 a.m., a security contractor arrived. Small guy with greasy hair. He didn't talk much. He just moved straight to the wall panel behind the counter and started dismantling the wiring like someone cracking open a safe. 5 minutes later, he called us over. He held up something tiny, a crudely soldered piece of circuit board the size of a keychain USB. Here's your ghost line, he said. Not a glitch. Not interference. Someone installed a signal diverter and miniature amplifier on line 4. He pointed to a dirt cheap micro USB wedged into the circuit. These files. Pre-recorded audio. Whisper tracks. Edited voice samples. Triggered remotely through an internal bypass. I felt my blood go cold. So, someone was broadcasting recordings to the phone? I asked. The tech nodded. And pulling live audio from inside the store. This little circuit hijacked your internal intercom feed. Dave whispered, so the typing, the keycard scanner, were real sounds from inside the building. The tech finished. Someone was monitoring everything. Probably from inside the store. Could have been from the parking lot too. This is old tech, but clever. Someone wanted to scare the hell out of you. He unplugged the USB. Cold, cheap, black plastic. This thing was probably installed weeks ago, he added. Maybe months. The police arrived. Took statements. Filed a report. Bagged the circuit board. The official theory, a disgruntled ex-employee, a bored tech enthusiast, or someone trying to gather personal info for identity theft. But that never explained the voices. The impossible mimicry. The timing. The grandmother phrase. The cigarette secret. The fact the caller always knew where I was standing. The cops shrugged it off. Case closed without a suspect. I quit the night shift the next morning. And to this day, 3 things stay with me. 1. The realization that someone had listened to every single private conversation I'd had in that store. 2. The fact that they replayed my memories back to me through my own voice. 3. The final whisper I heard, because it echoed in my head for months afterward. It came on my very last shift, just before I left the building for good. The ghost line blinked one final time. I didn't pick up. But the voicemail system automatically recorded the message. When Dave played it back later that week, he called me immediately, voice shaky, whispering like a child hiding in the dark. "Kid, you need to hear this." He played the recording. My voice, perfectly replicated, spoke only 3 words. "Not done yet." I managed to get myself transferred to a daytime position at a different Walmart, 20 miles outside of Jackson. I told them I needed a change of pace. I never mentioned the cart whisperer or the deep caller. Day shifts were busier, louder, and blessedly less conducive to slow-motion psychological warfare. I worked in the pharmacy section, a controlled environment with constant foot traffic. It was the safest place in the store. For a year, I felt normal again. The fear was a quiet, distant hum, not a scream. The only time my new store ever felt like the old one was during a severe weather event. My new store, being newer, didn't operate 24 hours. The last customers were shooed out at 10 p.m. But one Tuesday night, an unexpected, violent electrical storm rolled through central Alabama. The kind of storm that makes the sky look like a flickering photographic flashbulb. The manager, a woman named Carol, insisted that the skeleton crew of night shift stalkers and a few day shift employees, myself included, because I lived closest, stay inside the store until the lightning passed. The power was stable, but the weather outside was genuinely dangerous. We were trapped. I clocked out, but I was still there, sitting with a few other staff members in the break room, listening to the rain hammer the roof like buckshot. Around 1 a.m., the lightning strike that changed everything hit. It wasn't close, it felt like it hit the main substation for the county. The entire store plunged into absolute darkness. The auxiliary lights, the small, circular floodlights, kicked in almost instantly, but they cast a sickly, yellowish-gray light that only highlighted the vast, imposing shadows of the aisles. The sudden, profound silence of the air conditioning, the registers, and the coolers was unnerving. Carol, the manager, immediately went to the front to call the power company. I and a few other stalkers grabbed large, industrial flashlights and started a slow perimeter check. I was paired with a security guard named Ben. Ben was a big guy, but he was also the overreactor type, constantly cracking jokes to mask a deep anxiety. "Great," Ben said, his voice echoing in the sudden quiet. "Just like a horror movie. We're the maintenance crew that gets picked off one by one." I didn't find it funny. I was too busy remembering the psychological horror of the dark, quiet stores I used to patrol. We started our patrol in the rear of the store, near sporting goods. The flashlights cut harsh, yellow cones through the oppressive gloom, making the racks of bikes and camping gear look like monstrous shapes. We moved slowly, our footsteps echoing. Ben was clicking the head of his flashlight against his badge, a nervous tick. We reached the long, main thoroughfare aisle that led from the back wall to the front entrance. We aimed our lights forward, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of movement far down the aisle. "Did you see that?" I whispered. "See what? A ghost?" Ben joked, though his voice was a little higher than usual. "No. Look." We both held our lights steady. Nothing. Just the endless rows of shadowy products. Then, about halfway down the aisle, a small, black object moved slowly into the cone of light. It was a pair of roller skates. Not being pushed, not being pulled. They were simply rolling, slowly and steadily, from the right side of the aisle towards the left. They moved maybe 3 feet, hit the base of a shelf rack with a soft thud, and stopped. Ben swallowed hard. "Okay, now that is a classic. Draft. The air handling system must be, wait. The power's out. There's no air handling. Maybe a slight slope in the floor?" I suggested, grasping for a rational explanation. "The floor is perfectly level," Ben stated, no longer joking. "This is a brand new super slab. Those things were pushed." We walked over. I picked up the skates. They were cheap, new, and sealed in their plastic packaging. They were clearly pushed, not by a strong force, but by a very deliberate, low-down impact. We checked the surrounding aisles with our lights. Nothing. Not a shadow, not a sound other than the distant, persistent rain. We continued our patrol, our tension amplified tenfold. The storm outside was still raging, trapping us inside a massive, silent, and now seemingly occupied structure. We made a full loop and checked in with Carol. The power company gave a bleak estimate, 8 to 10 hours until full restoration. We were in for a long, dark night. I was told to stay in the central main aisle, near the registers, and monitor the doors. I sat on a stool behind the customer service counter, the industrial flashlight resting on the countertop, pointing up, casting eerie shadows on the ceiling. It was 2:30 a.m. The lowest point of the night. I was watching the main entrance, watching the lightning flash outside the massive plate glass windows, when I felt a subtle vibration on the tile floor beneath my feet. It was faint, like a heavy item being gently dragged across the slick vinyl. I gripped the flashlight and slid off the stool, moving out from behind the counter. I walked the length of the checkout lanes, peering down the main aisle towards the back of the store, the area Ben and I had just checked. The light was terrible, and the shadows were deep. I couldn't see anything. But the dragging sound had stopped. I slowly walked down the aisle, my light cutting a hole in the gloom. I passed the frozen foods, the dairy, and the baking supplies. I stopped near the aisle I'd been working that morning, the pet supplies section. The air here was slightly dusty, the way it always is when a large store is without proper ventilation. I shined my light on the clean, polished vinyl floor. And then I saw it. Running straight down the center of the aisle, from the wall of canned dog food all the way to the end cap, was a perfectly straight, thin line traced in the light layer of floor dust. It was perfectly level, a single, deliberate scratch in the dirt. I crouched down. The line wasn't deep enough to be a scratch in the tile. It was a disturbance in the dust. Something small, hard, and pointed had been slowly, painstakingly dragged across the floor. But the aisle was too long for one line. It was 20 feet long. Whatever made that line would have had to crawl, or use a tool on a long pole, or have incredibly steady hands while lying on its stomach. I followed the line with my flashlight beam. It ended abruptly at the end cap, the place where the roller skates had hit the shelf. I looked at the line's terminus and then slowly panned my light upward. On the shelf, resting neatly between two cans of dog food, was a single, long, silver knitting needle. It was resting horizontally, its pointed tip aligned perfectly with the end of the line on the floor. My breath hitched. The floor walker, whoever it was moving through the dark, silent store, not by walking, but by dragging something sharp and hard across the floor to leave a deliberate, observable mark. This wasn't a joke, or a lost customer. This was a dark form of communication. I didn't move the knitting needle. I didn't touch the line. I just slowly backed away, the single, straight line in the dust burning itself into my mind. I was no longer afraid of being watched. I was afraid of being mapped. I need to stop. The thought of someone lying flat on the floor, dragging something sharp through the dirt, in the dark, is a kind of psychological image I can't hold for long. I raced back to the break room, the cold, stark image of the silver knitting needle and the straight line in the dust overriding all my rational thought. I found Carol, the manager, and Ben, the security guard, huddled over a battery-powered radio, listening to the weather update. "Carol, Ben, I need you to come with me. Now," I said, my voice tight and urgent. "There's someone in the store. Or something. They're drawing lines on the floor." Ben scoffed nervously. "Lines? You mean we're trapped in here with an artist?" "No, Ben. A straight line, 20 feet long, traced in the dust with a silver knitting needle. I found the needle on the shelf." Carol, seeing the raw terror in my eyes, finally took the threat seriously. She was the calm thinker this time. "Okay. Flashlights, both of you. We stick together. We'll start at Pet Supplies and we'll sweep the area. If someone's in here, they're not getting out of the dark without us seeing them." We walked back, a trio of bobbing lights in the oppressive, silent gloom. When we reached the Pet Supplies aisle, I shone my light down. The line was still there, but something had changed. The single, 20-foot line was now intersected by two other, shorter lines, perpendicular to the first. They formed a large, crude symbol, a strange, elongated cross or maybe a massive T. And the knitting needle was gone. "What the hell is that?" Ben muttered, his earlier humor completely evaporated. "It wasn't like this 10 minutes ago," I whispered. "He's moving fast. He's here, right now, and he knows exactly where we are." We fanned out, searching the aisles, moving with a desperate, silent purpose. The fear was a combination of my past horrors, the cart whisperer's silent presence, and the deep caller's calculated targeting. This person was a blend of both, silent, and leaving personal, unsettling marks. As we searched, Ben, who was 20 feet away in the cereal aisle, suddenly shouted, "Guys! Look at this!" We rushed over. Ben's flashlight was pointed at the floor, where another set of lines was drawn. This time, they were much shorter, but numerous. They were parallel lines, crossing back and forth over each other, creating a dense patch of crosshatching, like a sketch artist warming up their pencil. Then, at the edge of the patch, he pointed to a single, small mark that made my stomach drop. It was a perfectly drawn, almost tiny circle, about the size of a quarter. And inside the circle, drawn with the same disturbing precision, was a small, perfect replica of the symbol we had just seen in the Pet Supplies aisle, the elongated cross. "It's a map," Carol breathed, her voice barely audible. "He's leaving us a map. This is Pet Supplies," she pointed to the small cross, "and these," she pointed to the cross-hatching, "are the next aisles." I had a horrifying realization. No. Not a map of the store. A map of the floor. He's charting our path. He's an architect, and the store is his building site. He wasn't mapping the aisles. He was measuring and drawing his territory beneath the racks, using the dust as his blueprint and the store's darkness as his cover. Carol, the calm thinker, took charge. "We're done with the lights-out game. We're going to the security room. If he's in here, he's on camera, or he was. We moved quickly to the small, locked security office near the main checkout. Carol unlocked the door and flipped the breaker. The monitor bank crackled to life, powered by a small backup generator. Dozens of small, grainy, yellow-tinted feeds blinked into existence. We sat there, watching the silent, looping feeds. The footage from the hours of the storm showed nothing but the flicker of lightning, the shadows, and the occasional blur of one of us on our initial sweep. Then, Ben spotted it. Wait. Rewind camera 12. The one in the back, facing the pharmacy. Carol quickly rewound the feed. Camera 12 showed the far corner of the store, near the pharmacy entrance where I used to work. At 2:45 a.m., 10 minutes after I had seen the first line, the figure moved into the frame. He wasn't crawling. He was walking, but he was crouched low, his head down, moving with an impossible, fluid silence. He was wearing dark clothes, almost blending with the shadow line where the dim yellow auxiliary light ended. He stopped directly in front of the pharmacy's steel mesh gate. He pulled something from his pocket, and we saw the flicker of silver, the knitting needle. He then knelt, slowly, almost ritualistically. He began to trace a line in the dust, right in front of the locked gate. He spent 4 full minutes on his knees, tracing, erasing, and tracing again. His head never lifted. He was totally absorbed in his work. He was drawing the final boundary. When he was done, he stood up. For the first time, his face was visible in the faint yellow light. It was a completely ordinary, middle-aged man, with a slight build and a calm, blank expression. He then took a small piece of dark, folded paper and placed it gently on the floor, right on the line he had drawn. He then turned his back to the pharmacy gate and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the main aisle. The line of fear that separated us from the dark reality snapped. This wasn't a prank. This was a dedicated, methodical trespasser defining a literal, psychological boundary. "That's it," Carol said, grabbing her walkie-talkie. "We're locking down this room. Ben, you call the police immediately. Tell them we have a breach and a trespasser. I'm going to get that note." "I'll go with you," I said, grabbing my own flashlight. I had to see the note. I felt like the whole night was a message addressed specifically to me. We moved quickly, running past the silent checkout lanes and down the dark aisle toward the pharmacy. The line was there, still pristine in the dust. And on the line, the folded paper, dark and ominous. Carol leaned over and snatched it up. She unfolded it under her flashlight beam. The paper was an old, perforated receipt from the pharmacy itself. On the back, written in the same precise, clean block letters as the index cards from the Cart Whisperer, were 2 words. "The Architect's Plan." And beneath the words, a single, terrifyingly specific number, Aisle 19. Aisle 19. My first station, my first fear, the bathroom accessories and shower curtain rings. The place where the Cart Whisperer had first passed me. This was my store, 20 miles away, but the trauma was the same. The same script, the same hand, the same target. The architect, the deep caller, the Cart Whisperer, they were all the same person. He hadn't stopped monitoring me after I quit. He had simply changed his costume, his method, and his location. He had followed me. The police arrived an hour later, but the store was vast, and the man was gone. The line in the dust was all the evidence we had. The police traced the receipt. It had been printed an hour before the storm hit, a standard prescription refill. Nothing suspicious. I quit my job the next day. I never set foot in a Walmart again. The knitting needle man, the floor walker, confirmed my deepest, most persistent fear, that the 3 horrors were not random incidents of store weirdness, but a single, evolving psychological experiment conducted on me. The man used the perimeter of the store, the isolation of the phone, and the cover of the darkness to teach me a terrible lesson. I don't shop at big box stores anymore. I can't. Every polished vinyl floor looks like a blank slate ready for a blueprint. Every time the lights flicker, my eyes are drawn to the dust, looking for a sign of a sharp, silver point being dragged across the ground. The persistent fear is this: I know that the man, the architect, is still out there. He didn't just map the store, he mapped my fear. He knows the exact coordinates of my psychological boundaries, and he knows that I am now completely convinced that my world is a meticulously drawn blueprint, and I am the only inhabitant trapped within his terrifying design. And sometimes, when I'm home alone, I hear the slightest, faintest sound of something hard and metallic gently scraping across the floor, and I know that the perimeter is expanding, one slow, deliberate line at a time.